Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Tumi Bina Teda Yal Jaga Madhare
My first real direct conversation with Prabhupada was when he was staying over on Formosa, because before the big temple on Watsika, he had separate quarters. Subsequently, he had separate quarters where he'd stay. And I got to go over there, and in fact, I remember it was when Neil Armstrong was in the moonshot, and I was there that day at Prabhupada's house. I had the good fortune of having prasadam. If memory serves me, the cook was Kartikeya, and Kartikeya told me he was making the hot chapatis, and he told me how Prabhupada really liked chapatis. Even though he was a small man, he could eat a dozen hot chapatis. And so I finally got to go into Prabhupada's room, and he looked directly at me and said a couple things, and then he said, "In your opinion, or by your knowledge, what is God, or who is God?" And having been brought up as a Catholic and, you know, greatness, I said, well, the greatest person. And he said, simply God, Krishna is the person who there's no one equal to him or no one greater than him. And if you went everywhere throughout the universes, that would be your experience. So I left there with that understanding. I said, well, today I found out who really is God. It's the person who no one is greater than or no one is equal to. That was my first conversation with the Prabhupada. My first opportunity to have a lot of association with Srila Prabhupada and in private or privately was when I was his driver. And in those days, Sankirtan parties stayed out very late, and everyone was very engaged, and there was really a lot of activity, especially when we acquired that new building, which had been the Methodist church. And I was a Sankirtan leader. But also because not everyone had driving skills or licenses, I also was elected to be Prabhupada's chauffeur in the morning. And like I said, in those days, Sankirtan parties would come back at midnight or 1 a.m. and even later on the weekends. And our Sankirtan leader, the leader, was Vishnu Jana Maharaj, Vishnu Jana. And I came back. We would come back very late, and everyone would get up late too. But somehow I was elected to get up early, like at 5 o'clock, to be ready to promptly, like at 10 minutes to 6, get Prabhupada. We had those little Mavericks, white Mavericks. And for several months, I took Prabhupada alone on his walks. And sometimes, because no one got up early, only Prabhupada was getting up early in those days. And Murlidhar, the artist, got up early because he didn't go out on the night Sankirtan. He painted. So I was the first person to see Prabhupada in the morning, and we'd go out. And then I really, what the devotees talk about, I got special attention or special consideration. And Prabhupada actually always, every day he would talk, he'd had something to talk about. One morning we were driving, we always drove down Venice. And we always went to Santa Monica Beach. Once I told Prabhupada about La Brea, the tar pits, and we went over there, and he liked walking around there. But one morning, it's about 6 a.m., and not a lot of movement yet on the streets, and a biker who had a shaved head, looked like had a Harley chopper and everything, he was driving down Venice Boulevard, and he looked over and he looked in the car, and I had a shaved head and Prabhupada had a shaved head, and he had pretty much shaved head, and he looked like a gnarly biker, right? But he, all of a sudden, he started staying with us. And then he went right behind us. And I was like a little concerned, you know. And he was kind of like singling with us and trying to communicate with us. He followed us all the way down to the beach. He parked behind us and came up and asked if he could walk with us, you know. And Prabhupada said yes. And Prabhupada talked to me, and the guy just walked along, and after about halfway through the walk, he turned around and left us. And I was, many times I found that certain situations were provoking or intimidating, but Prabhupada was so in control, and it rubbed off a little bit. I was like, oh, what's this guy going to do? And then Prabhupada was, yes, you may walk with us, please come. And he would stop and he would look, he would stop as he would when he was walking, and he'd have his cane, and he'd look at you directly in the eyes, and he looked at that guy in the eyes also. And he was explaining about, when you were with Prabhupada on the oceans, then it was deep philosophy, it was intellectual, because the element, the gigantic ocean, it's like Vishnu, Mahavishnu, Kiradakshay Vishnu. So whenever you saw in some of the materials, the ocean walks brought out some of the best, you know, the best times, discussion-wise. And Prabhupada would always be explaining, for example, how the material civilization had sprung up, and how the ocean had always been there, and the ocean always comes to this point, bar some tremor or an earthquake or disturbance, and the civilization comes to this point. And he was explaining this to this biker also, and it was just, it was incredible. About halfway through, the guy left, and Prabhupada just didn't notice it and kept on going. And devotees would about doing the magazines, and I would be with the books, and I'd invariably sell a few or several, and every night, especially Prabhupada would stay up very late, so sometimes we'd come back at 11:30 or something, and Gargamuni would say, Prabhupada wants to talk to you, and I'd run up, and he'd say, how many books did you sell, and how did it go, and who were the people, and what did you say to sell them? So that was interesting. In those days, later on in Sankirtan, people were wearing karmi clothes, or normal clothes, or wearing wigs and disguising it. In those days, we never thought about that, and I used to always tell the people exactly what I'd been hearing in the classes, that this was the Bible from India, and it would explain to you better about your past lives and goals. But Prabhupada, he was very specific. I mean, my recollections of Prabhupada, he was such a detailed person. Nothing escaped him. And if you just said something, and if it was lacking a little bit of substance, Prabhupada wanted to know what I was telling people. And he approved. I mean, I was listening in the classes in the morning, and I was saying things I was hearing, and he approved. But he wanted to know precisely what I was telling people and how it was that I was able to move those books and things like that. San Francisco Temple, on one occasion Prabhupada came for Rath Yatra, and I had more responsibility in that time. We had a devotee there, you know, Chandanacharya, and he was a householder in a temple which was mostly brahmachari, almost entirely. But he was very good. He did everything possible to help the devotees, and he was right there with us. But Chandan could imitate Prabhupada's voice. I mean, you couldn't tell. If he wanted to do it to you on the telephone or something like that, and you thought you were talking to Prabhupada by the way he would, the Bengali voice. And he used to get me in trouble with that, because he knew that he could fool me. And one time, Shama Sundar called me from London and gave me some big news that it was George Harrison had agreed to help purchase the temple and the book, and I was supposed to immediately give the news for Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was staying over in our temple in Berkeley, and I was in San Francisco. I knew Chandan was over there, and somebody answered the phone. I said, okay, I need to talk to Prabhupada. I have a message for him. Well, you know, it takes a little while. The temple, the phone's downstairs, and Prabhupada, I knew his guest room was up on top of the Berkeley temple. And immediately someone picked up the phone, and I knew Chandan was over there, and started saying, yes, what is it, what's the, you know, and I said, Chandan, please. I said, I'm calling to talk to Prabhupada, just get off the phone. And it took second time, then Prabhupada said, what are you talking about? I said, Chanda, come on, this is serious business. Then Prabhupada got mad and yelled at me on the phone. He said, this is Prabhupada, this is A.C. Bhaktivedanta, what do you want to say? You know? I said, oh, excuse me, Prabhupada. And then I got the message out. Oh, you don't know, I felt like, and he said, oh, very good, that's very good. I felt relieved, but I felt like such an idiot. When he came to Rath Yatra, I took pleasure in cooking. I wanted to make something very nice. And his servant told me that he liked okra. And I was clued in on the secrets of preparing okra so it doesn't become too, that viscosity that comes with it, and how to dry it and cut it properly. And I remember there were a bunch of devotees and we started cooking. Bhutatma was around then, and Krishnadas was there. And we made some very special preparations, and we made some, I remember I made this preparation with macadamia nut halva with cream, and I made some fancy rice and with gold leaf on it, the edible type. And all the devotees were saying, wow, we can't wait to get maha from this. And it came down empty. And it's, boy, Prabhupada really liked that. He ate everything. He really liked the okra, and every bit of it was gone. I felt like that was it. That was the apex of my life. That I cooked and it was good, that nothing came back down to be distributed. Yeah. I never ceased to be amazed at how every single time Prabhupada would tune right in and come up and relate to you and whoever was with you. One thing I never quite understood is I was a brahmachari for so many years, but my real propensity obviously wasn't to be a brahmachari, and it was a little wishful thinking on my part to think I was kind of like that advanced and detached. But you know, in those days, if you expressed the idea that maybe you thought you should be married, then you had someone talking you out of it, and your service was going to go to hell, and what, you know. So we had a hard life trying to figure out what decisions we were supposed to take. And I would go up to see Prabhupada, and on more than one occasion he would say, ah, Keshava-ji. He said, where is your wife? And I said, Prabhupada, I don't have a wife, you know, and he would do that. It's like, even he could see I wasn't really a pucka brahmachari, and he would say that. And I knew what he was saying. He was like showing me that, you know, you better think about things a little bit, you know. Prabhupada had a flight to catch, and the devotees figured out, considering bad traffic and everything, that they could leave within a certain amount of time and get Prabhupada there properly. But Prabhupada insisted that they had to leave very early that day. Well, people were wondering if that is something wrong with Prabhupada, because it's only 20 minutes to the airport and the flight, and Prabhupada was literally pushing Brahmananda out the door like 2 hours before they even needed to be to the airport, and they were only 20 minutes away. And they said, okay, you're Prabhupada, you're the spiritual master. And sure enough, on the road, there had been some bad accident and some big traffic problem, and everyone on the highway was really stuck. And he only got to the flight in the nick of time, and if they had left even a few minutes after, when Prabhupada was pushing them out early, they would have missed the flight. What to speak of leaving at the normal time? That would have been it. And devotees realized at that time Prabhupada knew that they had to go early. Now, how did he know? So, did Prabhupada really love his disciples? What kind of love was it? How would you understand it? And I knew that Prabhupada had a real type of love, a special love for disciples. And I knew also that Prabhupada didn't show favorites. A lot of people thought that. A lot of people thought there was favoritism circumstantially, not intentionally. But I knew Prabhupada got so much satisfaction or relief out of the little child that brought the flower, out of the devotee that was humble and not on the front lines, you know. And I knew that it was distributed evenly. His affection, his benediction, his blessings were evenly distributed.
Je anilo